Hi, this is episode 4 of the series Dragon Ball Lore Explained. I'm breaking down the lore of some of the lesser known parts of Dragon Ball and giving them their own moment of spotlight. On today's episode, we're covering the androids, specifically the androids from the Red Ribbon Army. I'm going to give a rundown of their lore and then go over how it applies to their history. Let's begin. The androids were originally created by Dr. Gero as soldiers for his Red Ribbon Army. They were better than normal humans as they were completely mechanical, allowing for immense amounts of artificial strength, and they were immune to aging, so as long as they were never killed, they could realistically never stop battling for the Red Ribbon Army. And on top of all of this, Gero had the button with him at all times to shut them all off in case things went south and they turned on him, but that didn't work out so well for him in the end. Now that you know a little bit about the androids, I'm going to go over the individual androids. They were created by number, so I'll go in order. To start, androids 1 through 7. Androids 1 through 7 had technical issues and were scrapped by Gero. We never see these androids and never hear about them, aside from 2 references in the Cell Saga. Android 8. Android 8 was a very large android. He was made entirely mechanically and was based on the monster Frankenstein. Despite his towering stature and scary looks, he turned out to be a very kind and gentle guy who did not believe in violence. For this reason, the Red Ribbon Army deemed Android 8 a failure and scrapped him. Android 9. Android 9 was the first of many Red Ribbon androids designed with the intended purpose of killing Goku. Android 9 is physically based on Commander Red, and he is seen in the non-canon game Dragon Ball Online. Aside from this, not much is known, except for the fact that androids 9 through 12 were flawed, same as 1 through 7, and were all scrapped. Android 13. This is movie territory, by the way. Android 13 is another one of the androids designed to kill Goku. In terms of looks, he's basically a buff redneck trucker with superpowers. This look is later ditched, however, when he becomes Super Android 13, only for him to look like Blanca's blue form from Street Fighter, but purchased from Wish.com. Aside from looking hilarious, he's not too interesting. Android 14. Android 14 is a large, gray-skinned android who is basically just Android 13's minion. He gets absolutely annihilated by Trunks, and that's it. Android 15. Android 15 is that thing. He suffers the exact same fate as 14, and is also not interesting. Now that we've gotten past the bad movie androids, we can get to the good stuff. Android 16. Android 16 is a large android built after Dr. Gero's son, Gero. I don't think I pronounced that right. Gero had passed sometime before this in combat for the Red Ribbon Army. Dr. Gero did program this android to kill Goku, however he didn't want 16 to be destroyed in battle. He decided not to make 16 violent, but rather a gentle soul who enjoyed nature. That plan didn't work out though. Androids 17 and 18. Androids 17 and 18 are twin siblings, and the first non-mechanical androids. They are rather humans, but with reconstructed organic matter. They were runaways who were abducted and experimented on by Gero. Yeah, dark. These two were brought back and even fought in the Tournament of Power. Android 17 was also brought back in another sequel to DBZ, but we don't talk about that. Android 19. Android 19 was another mechanical android, based off of a doll that Gero stole from an enemy base, as a trophy of sorts. Android 19 was an energy-absorbing model. He had devices on the palms of his hands which he could use to steal power from the body of an enemy. 19 was the most loyal android Gero ever created. He followed every instruction Gero gave and obeyed his programming entirely. Android 20. Android 20 is Dr. Gero himself. He decided to convert himself into a cyborg in order to become strong and to attain partial immortality. Android 21. Android 21 is a non-canon android from the video game Dragon Ball FighterZ. 21 is modeled after Gero's wife Vami. This android turned out to be a good person, but when her cells were clashed with that of Majin Buu, that all changed. She developed a sort of split personality. Alongside her abilities inherited from the Namekian, Buu race, and Frieza race cells she was made with, she can also mimic techniques such as instant transmission upon sight. Now, I could talk about androids 25 through 19,000, but they're all irrelevant characters from small games with little to no lore, so I will not be doing that. Gamma 1 and Gamma 2. The Gammas are 2 androids designed by Dr. Hedo, grandson of Dr. Gero. They were designed to be superheroes, but ended up taking on a different role. They were programmed to believe that the acts they were committing were virtuous, when in reality, they were attacking the good guys. The 2 androids later realized the manipulation committed by the army and turned on them. Now that you know about the androids, we can go over their history. After Goku destroyed the Red Ribbon Army in age 750, Dr. Gero went into hiding in the mountains. He invented spy technology, specifically in a tracking device disguised as a ladybug. Gero used this bug to spy on Goku and the Z-Fighters for years, studying their power and techniques as they evolved, so he could steal this power and implement it into the androids. But in the middle of him building his androids, Gero found a way to fuse cells from different people. He naturally used cell samples he had collected from the likes of Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Frieza, and King Cold, and left his supercomputer to finish the being, as it would take Gero far too long to personally put it together. Then, years later, Gero decided to take Android 19 and begin his first attack on Earth. But unfortunately for Gero, the timeline had been tampered with. 3 years before this attack, Trunks had arrived to warn the Z-Fighters of the androids and Goku's heart virus, claiming to have been from 17 years in the future, and Vegeta's son. In future Trunks' timeline, this attack would have pretty much instantly begun the downfall of humanity. In his timeline, the androids had destroyed nearly everything on Earth, but the Z-Fighters being warned had allowed them to train for this battle. Unfortunately, the androids don't have ki, so the fighters were unable to find them for a while, allowing them to freely massacre the local population for some time. Then finally, Yamcha spots them. But he didn't know that they were the androids. Yamcha believed them to be local residents and told the two to evacuate the area, until he noticed the Red Ribbon Army logo on Gero's hat. Before Yamcha had any time to react, Gero grabbed him by the face, punched through his body, and began draining Yamcha's life force. Due to Yamcha's ki being drained massively, the others were able to sense the disturbance and make their way to the battle themselves. They arrived to see two androids and Yamcha barely hanging on to life. Krillin quickly grabbed Yamcha and headed away to get Yamcha a sensu bean so he could heal up. In the meantime, the Z-Fighters began conversing with the androids, and Goku said that if they were going to fight, they should move to a different place, as to not endanger civilians. Android 19 misunderstood the request. He thought that Goku just didn't want anyone getting in the way, so 19 used the Bionic Punisher technique to destroy half of the city. Goku obviously got angry and immediately charged at him. Android 19 was confused, as Goku seemed obviously dissatisfied with this solution, and instead flew away as to find a new location like Goku suggested. They immediately began fighting, only for Goku to absolutely dominate both androids, as they had no post-Super Saiyan data on Goku. For a minute, it seemed like Goku would win, but that heart virus I mentioned earlier chose to activate at the worst possible moment. Goku fell to the ground, grabbing his chest, giving 19 the opening to grab him and start taking his life energy. The others tried to stop this, but 20 was covering for 19. But suddenly, Vegeta appeared, kicking 19 off of Goku, stating that the only one to kill Goku would be him. Yamcha flied off with Goku to give him the heart medicine, and Vegeta completely took over. He turned Super Saiyan and started beating down on Android 19. 19 was horrified and attempted to run away, only for Vegeta to hit him with a Big Bang attack, leaving only his head remaining. Gero quickly fled and hid amongst the rocks in the area. Vegeta shot a massive blast towards the ground under him in an attempt to flush him out, but Gero took this opportunity to stand in front of the blast and use the energy-absorbing mechanism in his palms to absorb the power of the blast. Gero then flew out of sight and went towards Piccolo. He used his newfound power to easily overpower Piccolo to steal his energy. He covered Piccolo's mouth in order to stop him from screaming for help, but this was to no avail as he could telepathically communicate. Piccolo notified Gohan of the situation, and Gohan arrived to strike Gero from behind. Piccolo then took a sensu bean to restore his strength and removed the weighted clothing he had previously been wearing, which was holding him back. Piccolo absolutely dumpstered Gero with no difficulty and severed his arm, but in a moment of distraction caused by the arrival of future Trunks, Gero was able to slip away and retreat to his lab. On the way, he got Bulma on his tail using an airplane. He quickly solved this issue by shooting a photon wave at the ship. This did not work out in his favor, however, as Bulma was still able to notify the others of the location of Gero's lab. Gero quietly entered and activated androids 17 and 18. These two were merely supposed to be a last resort, as they were far too powerful, so Gero kept the hold on their deactivation button the whole time. Gero informed the two of the threat of the Z-Fighters, and they agreed to kill them all. The Z-Fighters arrived and began attempting to break in. Gero obviously got distracted by this, and 17 used it as an opportunity to steal the switch and crush it in his fist, stating that Gero would not put him to sleep again. Vegeta busted down the door, and Gero immediately ordered the twins to kill him, but 17 just didn't feel like it. He told Gero that he would fight whenever he wanted. They began to check out a chamber labeled 16, and Gero repeatedly told him to stay away from it, as this was Android 16 inside the chamber. 17 just got annoyed by Gero and killed him with a single strike. Trunks was enraged at the androids for trying to wake another one, so in his rage, he shot a buster cannon into the lab, destroying the entire thing. Except Android 16's chamber. Android 16 was awakened, only for him to be extremely quiet. The other androids tried talking to him, but barely got a single word from him. They eventually decided that they were going to challenge Goku, not because they were programmed to do so, but because they were bored. They flew away towards Goku, only for 17 to stop. He stated that the droids were in no rush and that they could stop for some fun, stealing a car. This thought wasn't finished, however, as Vegeta quickly intercepted. Vegeta challenged them and the androids encouraged 16 to fight, but he just refused, so 18 fought instead. This fight didn't go how Vegeta thought it did. The two went blow for blow for a while until 18 broke Vegeta's arm with a flying roundhouse kick. The rest of the Z fighters were enraged to see this and charged at the androids, and to make a long story short, they were all destroyed with ease. After the Z fighters were dealt with, the twins grabbed 16 and flew away. The androids left everyone alone and caused some mischief across town, including grand theft auto, shoplifting, criminal damage to a police vehicle, and possibly murder. After all of this, they finally headed towards Goku's house. On the way, the androids sensed a disturbance in the atmosphere, and 16 chimed in saying that it was two natural beings fighting, one of them rivaling 17 in power. 17 remarked that it was impossible for anyone to rival him, and just kept going to Goku's house. Eventually, the androids arrived, only to find the house deserted. Did you seriously think the Z fighters would let a sick Goku stay at the house while he had killer robots actively hunting him? They obviously evacuated Goku and his family. The androids decided to head for the Kame house instead, as it was an important location to Goku. They arrived to find Piccolo watching the cell attacks on live television, while Krillin, Yamcha, and Tien were asleep in the same house. They asked Piccolo where Goku was, and when Piccolo wouldn't talk, they threatened with violence. But Piccolo still wouldn't talk, stating that they could go to a nearby uninhabited island if they wanted to fight. He had such confidence, as this was right after he had refused with Kami, giving him a massive power boost. This is something I cover in the last episode of Dragon Ball Lore Explained, Who Are the Namekians. Check it out if you haven't already. And Piccolo also had to hide his location by any means necessary, as a fully recovered Goku was training in the hyperbolic time chamber with Gohan, Vegeta, and Trunks, all preparing to fight the androids. The two fighters went to this uninhabited island and had a massive battle, which resulted in the destruction of the entire island. This fight easily could have gone further, but it was interrupted by the arrival of Cell. If you didn't know, Cell's goal was to absorb Android 17 and 18 for their power, so this was a no-no moment for both of them. Android 17 actually didn't know who Cell was and asked Piccolo. Piccolo was obviously confused as they literally came from the same lab, but he explained briefly. 17 demanded Cell to leave, but this was to no avail, and a fight instantly broke out. A massive struggle between the group happened, which ended in the near death of Piccolo and Cell absorbing 17, transforming into his semi-perfect Cell form. Android 18 looked on in horror as her brother was absorbed, but 16 quickly grabbed 18, stating that they needed to leave immediately. The two rushed away, only for Cell to overtake them. Android 16 tried to attack Cell, but their fight was very short-lived as Cell disfigured his head with one blast. Cell immediately tried to absorb 18 after this, but she played her final card. She threatened to destroy herself, saying she would if Cell got any closer. This put Cell in a bad situation, because if 18 killed herself, Cell would never be able to absorb her and attain his perfect form. But Cell had an idea. Cell used Android 17's voice to talk to 18, telling her that she should let Cell absorb her, and that being part of Cell was great. 18 began to trust until Cell said that they must fulfill the great Dr. Gero's wishes. This immediately let her know that it was fake, as both androids hated Gero. 18 expressed this, and an angered Cell began to say that he would just absorb her by force and that she couldn't be fast enough to self-destruct before Cell could get a hold of her. This almost happened, but Tien saved the day by shooting several tri-beam attacks at Cell, giving 16 and 18 the opportunity to escape. They managed to get to a nearby island, and this enraged Cell. He began shooting blasts at every island in sight in an attempt to flush them out, but just as he got to the android's island, Vegeta arrived to save the day. Sort of. He arrived only to be called insane by 18, as she had just nearly destroyed the Saiyan days prior, but she wasn't aware of Vegeta's use of the time chamber. Vegeta attacked, and as this fight raged on, Krillin snuck up on the androids holding a remote. Bulma had remade the remote that 17 destroyed, the one to turn off the androids. Krillin watched and almost hit the button, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He dropped the remote, broke it, and approached the androids, telling them to leave the island. 18 asked why Krillin spared them, but Krillin couldn't answer. As this was happening, Cell was talking about his perfect form, trying to appeal to Vegeta's ego, stating that he would be a much better opponent in this state. Vegeta, being Vegeta, agreed to this and allowed Cell to leave and come back when he had attained perfection. Trunks immediately interfered, only to be kicked away by Vegeta. But then both Trunks and Cell noticed at the same time 18, 16, and Krillin, just standing there on a nearby island. Trunks quickly shouted to the group,
"Cell has found you."
A massive struggle ensued. Trunks was fighting Vegeta as he was helping Cell, all while the androids and Krillin fought against Cell. Cell then used the Solar Flare attack, which is a blinding technique, and used the moment to quickly absorb 18, attaining perfection. Now, this is the story of the androids, not the life story of Cell. So, to summarize, big fight. Goku sacrificed himself by blowing Cell and himself up, but it was to no avail, as a singular cell remained of Cell, and he was able to regenerate from it. Gohan later gets Super Saiyan 2, he smacks Cell up, basically forces him to regurgitate 18, reverting him to the semi-perfect state, smacks him up some more, and kills him with the help of the Z-Fighters. Android 18 later awoke on the lookout after the fight was over. Sadly, 17 was killed, since he was still absorbed by Cell when he was killed. But luckily, this is Dragon Ball! They pretty much instantly wished him back to life and wished that the self-destruct bombs implanted by Gero be removed from the androids. Later, 18 settled down, married Krillin, and started a life with him, having a child named Marin. Android 17 bounced around a bit, but eventually found an island called Monster Island, where he became a park ranger, married a zoologist, and had 3 kids. But both of their normal lives were interrupted when the Tournament of Power commenced. Just kidding, this is already a colossal video and I can't really cover the events of the Tournament of Power. Luckily, it's not very relevant to the androids lore, so I don't think anyone will mind. I could, however, make an explained video about the entire Tournament of Power saga. Definitely drop a comment if you want that, because I can have it in the works very soon. There's also this, but as I said before, we don't talk about that. That's not real. Anyways, thank you for watching my full video. Please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what parts of Dragon Ball do you want explained? Bye.